breathe it in, it's only for a little while. Take a chance and dive into the deep. Soak it in, the air's feeling warmer. There's never been a better time than this. Now is the time. Dance in the sunshine, now is the time.
What we do is a little bit different from my colleagues here. We are a research organization. So IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute, is focusing mostly on policy issues. My initial training was an agricultural scientist, but now later on I became an economist, or became also an economist, I think, yes, I hope. But we are part of a network of, which called, goes with the abbreviation of CJIAR. It's the largest publicly funded agricultural research organization in the world, mostly working in lower and middle income countries. Now, initially, a lot of what when our organization was created roughly 50 to 70 years ago, it was very top-down. It was like the Green Revolution inspired, if you want. Okay, that has changed quite a lot. We are now much more involved with local communities, with local stakeholders and partners in setting our research agenda. And so I think the issues we discuss today are very much part of what we are working on these days, and how we have designed our new research portfolio for the future. If we, for example, initially had most of the staff in Washington, D.C., we still have our headquarters there, but now 70% of our staff is in the countries, and most of our staff is from the countries as well. The issue here, where we talked about, maybe one other point I should say, is that initially much was on the production side of agriculture. Now we have a large nutrition group, and I think Gwen here mentioned the importance of basically local cultures, of indigenous knowledge, of indigenous history, etc. in nutrition, and it's really, really crucial. It's very important. I mean, it affects nutrition everywhere, and I think there's a huge role in basically stepping back in terms of keeping what is there, which the way it survived, if you want, the arrival of new foods, often from abroad, as you, documented very well, but at the same time try to learn from the past and bring it back, because I think the nutrition side is sometimes somewhat underemphasized in the whole food security debate, while it's extremely important, obviously, for health and for a number of other reasons also going forward. The focus of the conference is on finance. I think there is a lot of it, and particularly public discourses about how can you mobilize the Wall Street dollars, about the private sector, or the traditional, basically Western donors to fund their own sustainability, but also the world's lower and middle income sustainability. But if you look at food systems, about 70 to 80% of the finance which is there is actually internal to the food system. That means it's basically dollars or euros or whatever local currency spent by consumers, okay? And so how that trickles down to the farms, or in many cases does not trickle down to the farms, that's really the most important source of finance in food systems. And so the question is, how can you mobilize this for the right purposes, and how can you also incentivize both all the people involved in these transactions? And so even in developing countries, about 50% of the money that is spent by consumers is reaching the farms. In middle-income countries, it's basically 20 to 30%. So that means you need to work with all the other agents which are in there, and many of these are local, small, and medium companies. And so I think also there is a huge role for local knowledge, for local institutions and engagements in this thing. Clearly, the management of local resources, of natural resources, is essential in what we're talking about. I think the video was really, doesn't need any comment on that. It's very powerful, I think. And so, but there is a lot of, and so I think there the issue is, how do you balance, let's say, new technologies which are being developed with local knowledge knowledge, local insights, and local management practices and technology which is in there and which may be not used in the right way, and how do you find the right balance there? And there's a number of things in there. Finance is one of them, risk is another one. Sometimes knowledge itself, okay, do people know about it, or have they forgotten, or is it being sidelined for other reasons? I think in the whole finance problem, if you look at climate change, for example, only we know that agriculture and food systems play a huge role in not just in greenhouse gas emissions, also in biodiversity, water use, etc. But if you look globally, only 4% of all the climate finance goes to agriculture and food systems. If you look at smallholder agriculture, it's less than 1%. And I think if you look even at these local production systems, it's probably just a 0.0 percentage. So the issue is how can we change that going forward? And there the issue of information and enforcement and monitoring is really, really important to basically bridge supply and demand there. I think, and sorry I'm using economic terms, but I think they're just as relevant in these issues than they are when we talk about very formal models, etc. Also the issue of sustainability standards is rapidly growing all around the world. I think it has huge potential implications for these systems that we are talking about. And so the issue is how can you make these new basically standards, okay, which are really imposed on global supply chains but also on local supply chains, such that you have that efficiency and equity go together, or sustainability and inclusion, if you want to use different words. So these are major questions that are out there. We are, as a research organization, we hope to contribute to providing some answers to the question, also come up with